Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. So today I'm going to be talking about karma. And I'm going to be using two different suttas. One is from the Majjhima Nikaya, and the other one is from the Samyutta Nikaya. And I'll start with the Majjhima Nikaya, and we will discuss it. Well, I'll first read that, provide my explanation for that, and then go into the Samyutta Nikaya sutta and explain that. And then from there, we can discuss further if you have any comments or questions. So let me get started with the Majjhima Nikaya one. This is Majjhima Nikaya 136, and this is the Kamma Vibhanga Sutta, the Greater Exposition of Action. So this is a translation by Bhikkhu Bodhi. Let me begin. Thus have I heard, on one occasion, the Blessed One was living in Rajagaha, in the bamboo grove, the squirrel's sanctuary. Now, on that occasion, the Venerable Samiti was living in a forest hut. Then the wanderer Potaliputta, while wandering and walking for exercise, went to the Venerable Samiti and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side and said to the Venerable Samiti, "Friend Samiti, I learned this from the recluse Gautama's own lips. Bodily action is vain. Verbal action is vain. Only mental action is real. And there is that attainment on entering which one does not feel anything at all." So this is what Samiti says. He says, "Do not say so, friend Potaliputta. Do not say so. Do not misrepresent the Blessed One. It is not good to misrepresent the Blessed One. The Blessed One would not speak thus. Bodily action is vain. Verbal action is vain. Only mental action is real. But friend, there is that attainment on entering which one does not feel anything at all." So when they say bodily action is vain, verbal action is vain, only mental action is real, first of all, Potaliputta didn't actually hear this from the Buddha's own lips, as we will see. So this is a distortion of what he heard, and whoever told it to him might have misheard it, or he might have misunderstood it. Basically, here it's saying that, or he's trying to say that bodily action is unfruitful, and it doesn't produce any kind of result. And verbal action is unfruitful and doesn't produce any kind of result. And it's only mental actions. That's not the case. This is actually referring to another time where the Buddha was talking to Upali, who was a follower of the Niganta Nataputta, who was basically the head of the Jain wanderer, the Jain group of wanderers. And in that, the Buddha says that it starts with mental action, verbal action, and physical action or bodily action are all important, but it starts with mental action. And it's the mental action that one needs to pay attention to, because that's where it begins from. The intention starts in the mentality. It starts from the thinking process, the intention, and the mental feeling process, which then will give rise to an intention to express through speech or through physical action. So in reference to that, this is what was said, but not in the way that Potaliputta is representing it. So, but there is that attainment on entering which one does not feel anything at all. Of course, that's the cessation of perception and feeling. So Potaliputta says, "How long is it since you went forth, friend Samiti?" "Not long, friend, 3 years." "There now, what shall we say to the elder bhikkhus when a young bhikkhu thinks the teacher is to be defended thus?" Friend Samidhi, having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, or mind, what does one feel? Having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, and mind, one feels suffering, and Potali-putta. So we will see that the statement is not wholly accurate based on how Samidhi is representing it. But then this is what Potali-putta does. It says, then neither approving nor disapproving of the Venerable Samidhi's words, the wanderer Potali-putta rose from his seat and departed. Soon after the wanderer Potali-putta had left, the Venerable Samidhi went to the Venerable Ananda and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side and reported to the Venerable Ananda his entire conversation with the wanderer Potali-putta. After he had spoken, the Venerable Ananda told him, Friend Samidhi, this conversation should be told to the Blessed One. Come, let us approach the Blessed One and tell him this. As the Blessed One explains to us, so we shall bear it in mind. Yes, friend, the Venerable Samidhi replied. Then the Venerable Ananda and the Venerable Samidhi went together to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, they sat down at one side. The Venerable Ananda reported to the Blessed One the entire conversation between the Venerable Samidhi and the wanderer Potali-putta. When he had finished, the Blessed One told the Venerable Ananda, Ananda, I do not even recall ever having seen the wanderer Potali-putta. So how could there have been this conversation? There you go, it confirms. Though the wanderer Potali-putta's question should have been analyzed before being answered, this misguided man, Samidhi, answered it one-sidedly. And so somebody else jumps in and he says, when this was said, the Venerable Udayin said to the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, perhaps the Venerable Samidhi spoke thus, referring to the principle, whatever is felt is included in suffering. So let's take these two different statements. As the Buddha said, Samidhi responded one-sidedly, meaning he didn't give the full picture. He didn't explain it as it should have been explained. Here it's saying, having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, or mind, one feels suffering. That's not the whole picture. You can still do something that is pleasant in the way of the mind, in the way of speech and the body, then you will experience a pleasant feeling. Or you can do something that is neutral and experience something that is neutral. So it's not just suffering. But there is another understanding which Udayin is trying to bring up here. And he says, whatever is felt is included in suffering, which is to say that the experience of feeling, because it is impermanent and liable to change, it has intrinsic dukkha in it because of its impermanent nature. So that's a different understanding. That is to say that feeling is always in flux, and therefore there is the experience of sankhara dukkha. Sankhara dukkha means the inherent dukkha, because of the formations that bring about it are also temporary, also impermanent and fettered. So that feeling will also be temporary, will be impermanent, and therefore not to be considered as satisfying and not to be considered as self. Then the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Ananda. See, Ananda, how this misguided man Udayin interferes. I knew Ananda that this misguided man Udayin would unduly interfere right now. So he's admonishing Udayin to interject into the conversation. Perhaps it was not the right time to interject, or whatever it might have been. But even though Udayin's answer would have been considered correct in reference to that understanding, that feeling being temporary or impermanent is intrinsically also bound for suffering, or intrinsically dukkha. But because he interfered, he interjected, the Buddha admonishes him for it. And so he says, from the start, the wanderer Potaliputra had asked about the three kinds of feeling. This misguided man, Samidhi, would have answered the wanderer Potaliputra rightly if, when asked thus, he would have explained, friend Potaliputra, having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, or mind, whose result is to be felt as pleasant, one feels pleasure. Having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, or mind, whose result is to be felt as painful, one feels pain. Having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, or mind, whose result is to be felt as neither pain nor pleasure, one feels neither pain nor pleasure. But who are these foolish, thoughtless wanderers of other sects, that they could understand the Tathagat's great exposition of action? You should listen, Ananda, to the Tathagat as he expounds the great exposition of action. This is the time, Blessed One, this is the time, Sublime One, for the Blessed One to expound the great exposition of action. Having heard it from the Blessed One, the bhikkhus will remember it. Then listen, Ananda, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, the Venerable Ananda replied. The Blessed One said this, Ananda, there are four kinds of persons to be found existing in the world. What for? Here, some person kills living beings, takes what is not given, misconducts himself in sensual pleasures, speaks falsehood, speaks maliciously, speaks harshly, gossips, he is covetous and has a mind of ill will and holds wrong view. So these are all of the evil actions that one can commit in terms of the 10 unwholesome actions. There is one who kills, one who steals, takes what is not given, has misconduct in sensual pleasures, or has misconduct due to sensual pleasures, speaks falsehoods, lies, speaks maliciously, harshly, and gossips, and has idle chatter. He is covetous. He has a mind of ill will, and he holds wrong view, which means that there is not established in his mind right view. He hasn't yet become a stream enterer. On the dissolution of the body after death, he appears in a state of deprivation and an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. But here, some person, again, goes through the 10 unwholesome actions and of wrong view. On the dissolution of the body after death, he appears in a happy destination, even in the world. So it's important to note this. So in the first case, you have a person committing unwholesome deeds, unwholesome actions, and because of those unwholesome actions, appears in a lower realm, in a state of deprivation, even in hell. But you have the second person who also commits those same deeds, but he appears in a heavenly world. He appears in the six sensuous heavens. Here, some person abstains from killing living beings, from taking what is not given, from misconduct and sensual pleasures, from false speech, from malicious speech, from harsh speech, from gossip. He is not covetous. His mind is without ill will, and he holds right view. On the dissolution of the body after death, he appears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. So when the Buddha talks about right view here, it's important to make this distinction. He's talking about mundane right view, which is to say the understanding that there is mother and father, and so one should pay gratitude towards them, that there is meaning in giving, meaning in charity, meaning in generosity, that there is a understanding of Kamma, that good and bad actions produce good and bad effects, that there is such a thing as spontaneous rebirth or spontaneous generation of a body. There is such a thing as rebirth. There is such a thing as this world and another world. and that there are sages and Brahmins who know about these things and have understood through their own experience and are able to provide and convey that information. So that's the mundane right view. The super mundane right view is the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. But here, some person abstains from killing living beings, and he holds right view. So somebody abstains from killing, from taking what is not given, from misconduct and sensual pleasures, from false speech, from malicious speech, from harsh speech, from gossip, and they're not covetous, and their mind is without ill will, and they hold right view. On the dissolution of the body after death, he appears in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. So what he's saying is, even a person who is still abstaining from these 10 unwholesome tendencies and actions, even though they hold right view, that in this case is the mundane right view, they have some kind of understanding of that. But even despite all of that, on the dissolution of the body after death, they appear in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. So then he continues. He says, here, Ananda, by means of ardor, endeavor, devotion, diligence, and right attention, some recluse or Brahmin attains such concentration of mind, when his mind is concentrated with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human. He sees that person here who commits these unwholesome actions and who holds wrong views, and he sees that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has appeared in the state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. He says thus, indeed, there are evil actions. There is result of misconduct. For I saw a person here who committed these actions and held wrong view, and I see that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has appeared in a state of deprivation, even in hell. He says thus, this recluse who sees this, he says thus, on the dissolution of the body after death, everyone who kills living beings and so on and holds wrong view reappears in a state of deprivation, even in hell. Those who know thus know rightly. Those who think otherwise are mistaken. And thus, this recluse obstinately adheres to what he himself has known, seen, and discovered, insisting, only this is true, anything else is wrong. But here, Ananda, by means of ardor, some recluse or Brahmin attains such a concentration of mind, when his mind is concentrated with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, he sees that person here who kills living beings, commits all of these actions, and holds wrong view. And he sees that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has reappeared in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. He says thus, indeed, there are no evil actions. There is no result of misconduct. For I saw a person here who killed living beings, committed these actions, and held wrong view. And I saw that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has appeared in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. He says thus, the recluse says to himself, on the dissolution of the body after death, everyone who kills and commits these misdeeds and holds wrong view appears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. Those who know thus know rightly. Those who think otherwise are mistaken. Thus he obstinately adheres to what he himself has known, seen, and discovered, insisting, only this is true, anything else is wrong. So now you have two cases here. You have one person having seen for themselves that there are beings who have arisen and gone into hell because of their wrong misdeeds and their wrong views. But then another person has seen that there are people or beings who commit wrong deeds and have wrong view, and yet they enter heavenly destination. So this person, the second person, thinks that this is the only way, and he holds on to that view, like the first person. Now there's a third person. Here, Ananda, by means of ardor, some recluse or Brahmin attains such a concentration of mind that when his mind is concentrated with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, he sees that person here who abstains from killing living beings and holds right view. And he sees that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has appeared in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. He says thus to himself, indeed, there are good actions. There is result of good conduct. Or I saw a person here who abstained from these misdeeds and held right view. And I see that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has reappeared in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. He says thus to himself, on the dissolution of the body after death, everyone who abstains from killing living beings and committing these wrong deeds and holds right view appears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. Those who know thus know rightly. Those who think otherwise are mistaken. Thus he obstinately adheres to what he himself has known, seen, and discovered, insisting only this is true, anything else is wrong. So now we have the third category of persons who has seen for themselves that there are beings who commit right action, who commit right speech and have right thought and maintain the mundane right view. And so, rightly so, according to their understanding, they go into a heavenly realm. And so now they hold on to this view based on what they have seen. Now there's a fourth category, but here Ananda, by means of ardor, some recluse or Brahmin attains such a concentration of mind that when his mind is concentrated with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, he sees that person here who abstains from killing living beings, who abstains from all of this misdeeds, so commits the right speech, the right action, right behavior, and so on, and they still hold the mundane right view. And he sees that on the dissolution of the body after death, he appears in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. And so he says thus, the recluse to himself, indeed, there are no good actions. There is no result of good actions. For I saw a person here who abstained from killing, who abstained from all of these wrong deeds, and they held right view. And I see that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has reappeared in a state of deprivation, even in hell. So he says to himself, on the dissolution of the body after death, everyone who abstains from wrong actions, speech and behavior and thought, and holds right view, reappears in a state of deprivation, even in hell. Those who know thus know rightly. Those who think otherwise are mistaken. Thus, he obstinately adheres to what he himself has known, seen, and discovered, insisting only this is true. Anything else is wrong. So now the Buddha has given us an understanding, an outline of the four cases, there's two sets of fours. There is the four cases of understanding the different kinds of beings who arise according to their deeds, and yet there are some who, even if they commit right deeds and have right view, go into hell, and those who commit wrong deeds and have wrong view go into heaven. So then he talks about the beings or the recluses who are able to see for themselves and hold these different kinds of views depending upon their experiences. Now that he's laid this out, the Buddha will continue with the exposition, the analysis of this whole process. Therein, Ananda, when a recluse or Brahmin says, indeed, there are evil actions, there is result of misconduct, I grant him this. So the Buddha says, yes, this is right. This is possible, that there are evil actions and there is a result of those evil actions. Then when he says, I saw a person who killed and committed all of these things and then held wrong view, and I see that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has appeared in a state of deprivation, even in hell. So the Buddha says, I also grant him this. I would say this is accurate, this is right. But when he says, on the dissolution of the body after death, everyone who kills living beings and so on and holds wrong view reappears in a state of deprivation, even in hell. I do not grant him this because it's not always so clear-cut. As you will see, Kamma is not so clear-cut that as soon as you do a wrong action, you will see the fruit of that action in the next moment or in the next life or whatever it might be. There is a certain complexity to Kamma where you see that there are different kinds of streams of Kamma crisscrossing, and dependent upon the timing in terms of the fruition of certain Kamma, the fruition of certain action, there will be the ripening of that fruit and then the experiencing of the result of that action. But anyway, the Buddha says, he does not grant him that. He does not grant him that everyone who does this is going to go into hell. So, because there is, like I said, different kinds of complexities involved. So then the Buddha says, and when he says, those who know thus know rightly, those who think otherwise are mistaken, I also do not grant him this, because you cannot be so black and white about Kamma in this sense. Yes, there is good Kamma, there is bad karma. There is bright deeds and there's dark deeds. And they do have an interconnection in the sense that good results into good and bad results into bad. But like I said, it's not as clear cut. So to hold that view only would not be accurate. It would not be the correct view to have and to hold on to. And when he obstinately adheres to what he himself has known, seen, and discovered, insisting, only this is true, anything else is wrong, I do not grant him this. Why is that? Because, Ananda, the Tathagat's knowledge of the great exposition of action is otherwise. Therein, Ananda, when a recluse or Brahmin says, indeed, there are no evil actions, there is no result of misconduct, I do not grant him this, because he has come into wrong view. If he sees that there are beings who have committed wrong action, who have committed bad karma, bad actions, and have wrong view, and they're still going into heaven, then he makes this logical kind of process in his mind saying that, well, then that means there is no meaning to committing wrong actions or right actions. It doesn't matter. Everyone will go into heaven. So the Buddha is saying, I will not grant him this. This is wrong view. When he says, I saw a person here who killed living beings and committed all of these actions and held wrong view, I see that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has reappeared in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. I grant him this because that is a possibility. That is a possibility that even somebody who has committed wrong actions and has wrong views can still go into a heavenly destination. But the Buddha says, when he says this, on the dissolution of the body after death, everyone who commits all of these wrong actions and holds the wrong view reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. I do not grant him this. And when he says, those who know thus know rightly, those who think otherwise are mistaken, I also do not grant him this. So with that assumption, by making that kind of analysis, somebody who sees this and says that on the dissolution of body, everyone who commits wrong deeds will still get to heaven, that's an inaccurate view. That's not the right view either. And to think that this is the case only and nothing else is holding on to that view, being stubborn to this wrong view. And when he obstinately adheres to what he himself has known, seen, and discovered, only this is true and anything else is wrong, I also do not grant him this. Why is that? Because, Ananta, the Tathaga's knowledge of the great exposition of action is otherwise. Therein, Ananda, when a recluse or Brahmin says, indeed, there are good actions, there is result of good conduct, I grant him this. Yes, that is a possibility. Somebody who commits good actions has right view and gets the result of that good conduct. And when he says, I saw a person here who abstained from killing living beings, who abstained from committing all of these wrong actions and held the right view, and I see that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has reappeared in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. I also grant him this, which is to say, yes, that this is a possibility. It can happen. But when he says, on the dissolution of the body after death, everyone who abstains from killing living beings and committing these wrong actions, and everyone who holds right view, that's the mundane right view, reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world, I do not grant him this, because you can't just say absolutely that everyone who does this will be bound for a heavenly realm. And when he says thus, those who know thus know rightly, those who think otherwise are mistaken, I also do not grant him this. And when he obstinately adheres to what he himself has known, seen, and discovered, insisting, only this is true, anything else is wrong, I also do not grant him this. Why is that? Because, Ananda, the Tathaga's knowledge of the great exposition of action is otherwise. Therein, Ananda, when a recluse or Brahmin says, indeed, there are no good actions, there is no result of good conduct, I do not grant him this. That would be a wrong view to say that there is no meaning in committing good actions because they don't bring up good results. And the reason this wrong view comes about is because this person who sees it mistakenly thinks and understands it or misinterprets it in a way to say that he just saw them committing good actions, but now he sees that they're going into hell. So what is the point of doing any kind of good action? The Buddha does not grant him this view. It's inaccurate. When he says, I saw a person here who abstained from killing living beings, who committed all of these good actions, even held the right view, and I see that on the dissolution of the body after death, he has appeared in a state of deprivation, even in hell, I grant him this, because it is a possibility. It can happen. But when he says this, on the dissolution of the body after death, everyone who abstains from killing living beings, everyone who abstains from committing wrong actions and holds right view reappears in a state of deprivation, even in hell. That I do not grant. He doesn't grant him that because it's not accurate, again. And when he says, those who know thus know rightly, those who think otherwise are mistaken, I also do not grant him this. And when he obstinately adheres to what he himself has known, seen, and discovered, insisting, only this is true, anything else is wrong, I also do not grant him this. Why is that? Because, Ananda, the Tathaga's knowledge of the great exposition of action is otherwise. So now the Buddha is going to further analyze this. He says, therein, Ananda, as to the person here who kills living beings and holds wrong view, and on the dissolution of the body after death, reappears in a state of deprivation, even in hell. This is important to understand. Either earlier, he did an evil action to be felt as painful, or later, he did an evil action to be felt as painful, or at the time of death, he acquired and undertook wrong view. So committing evil actions that are to be felt, their resultants are to be felt as painful, either now or later, whether he committed it before or later, or he held the wrong view at the time of death, that will lead that person into hell. So that is a given. Because of that, on the dissolution of the body after death, he has appeared in a state of deprivation, even in hell. And since he has here committed these deeds and held wrong view, he will experience the result of that either here and now, meaning he will experience the effects of the wrong deeds and the wrong view in this lifetime, or in the next lifetime, in the next rebirth, or in some subsequent existence, which is to say that because of the process of Kamma, that Kamma, it will be like a seed which will bear fruit at a certain time. It's not to say that that seed will bear fruit here and now in this lifetime, or that it will bear fruit in the next lifetime, or in a subsequent lifetime. You can't say which is which. It can happen at any point in time, and it's dependent upon different factors and conditions. Now the Buddha says there in Adanda, as to the person who kills living beings and commits all of these misdeeds and holds wrong view, and on the dissolution of the body after death, reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world, either earlier he did a good action to be felt as pleasant, or later he did a good action to be felt as pleasant, or at the time of death he acquired and undertook right view. So a person who commits misdeeds and has wrong view, their karma will still ripen at some point in time. But for whatever reason, depending upon the exchange of karma, which is very complex to really look at, but based on what the Buddha is saying, what he's saying is, because of some action that he did at a previous time, or that he did in this lifetime, or right before he died, and of course having undertaken, meaning understood right view, and take that as the view, he is not liable to fall into a lower realm. It might happen at a subsequent time, but because he was able to have some kind of action that was good, that overtook the effects of that overtook the negative karma, the past negative karma, and resulted in an immediate fruition in which he has a rebirth in a heavenly existence or in a happy destination. Because of that, on the dissolution of the body, after death, he has reappeared in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. But since he has here killed living beings and held wrong view, he will experience the result of that either here and now, or in his next rebirth, or in some subsequent existence. Which is to say that even if he experiences or he takes on the mundane right view, which is to say that he hasn't become a stream enterer yet, that's an important factor here. He still has the mundane right view, the intellectual right view of understanding on a mental level that these are the different elements of the mundane right view. He still has that. He still has committed some good deeds which have ripened and taken fruition into a better destination or a heavenly existence. But he will still pay for, in that sense, he will still experience the effects of the wrong view, the effects of whatever he did in terms of misdeeds at some point in time. He might even, and that's the thing here, he might even experience the effects of that wrong view, the effects of that negative karma right now in this lifetime, and still go into a heavenly realm. Or he might experience it at a later time or in another rebirth after having experienced the happy destination, or in a subsequent existence at some point in time in samsara. So then the Buddha says, there in Ananda, as to the person who abstains from killing living beings, who abstains from all of these wrong actions, and holds right view, and on the dissolution of the body, after death reappears in the happy destination, even in the heavenly world. Either earlier he did a good action to be felt as pleasant, or later he did a good action to be felt as pleasant, or at the time of death he acquired and undertook right view. Because of that, on the dissolution of the body after death, he has appeared in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. And since he has here abstained from these misdeeds and held right view, he will experience the result of that either here and now, or in his next rebirth, or in some subsequent existence. So yes, he might go into the heavenly realms because of what he's done, and he might still continue to experience the fruition of his deeds, his right deeds, his wholesome actions at another time as well in his cyclical existence. He will experience a better rebirth at another point in time after that heavenly existence, and so on. But therein, Ananda, as to the person who abstains from these misdeeds and holds right view. So at a certain point, he abstained from any misdeeds and held on to that mundane right view. And on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a state of deprivation, even in hell. Either earlier, he did an evil action to be felt as painful, or later, he did an evil action to be felt as painful, or at the time of death, he acquired and undertook wrong view. So that means that he has not had confidence in that right view, if he had right view, which is the mundane right view. Because he didn't have stream entry, he is still liable to fall into an unhappy destination, a lower realm, like the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, or the hell realms. So even if he has committed right action and right speech, abstained from wrong action and wrong speech, he might have done something in the past that overtook the effects, overtook the ripening process of that negative karma, and that resulted in a, so he did something good, but the negative karma overtook the ripening of the good karma, and it resulted in a state of deprivation in hell. Or he undertook some kind of wrong view before dying, because that immediate thought that one person has is that bhava that then leads to the next rebirth. Whatever the bhava is, whatever that becoming, that sense of existence, that sense of identification with the formations that arise in the mind prior to death, if the mind latches onto it and there's enough energy, it will give rise to a new consciousness that will take rebirth according to those immediate formations. So if he took wrong view at that point in time, it can result in a state of deprivation, in a state of hell, a hell realm. But since he has here abstained from killing living beings, abstained from all the other misdeeds, and held right view, he will experience the result of that either here and now, or in the next rebirth, or in some subsequent existence, which is to say that once that ripening effect, that process of ripening of the negative actions overpowers or overtakes the ripening process of the good karma, resulting in him getting into a lower state of existence or a state of unhappiness, after that is gone, there will be the ripening of the good karma. So it's not linear. It's not in a way that is cut, dry. It's not black and white. It can happen where certain karma comes to fruition here and now, in this lifetime, in the next few moments, or in the next few years, or whatever it might be. Or it might take time to come to fruition until the next rebirth, if one is still in that process of samsara. It's only when a person has entered the stream that they completely close off the possibility of rebirth to a lower realm. And the reason is because they have acquired complete confidence in the Buddha, complete confidence in the Dhamma, in the Sangha. They have maintained their precepts, they have maintained their virtues, and they have abandoned all wrong view. And so the effect of any kind of negative action that they've taken will result in some kind of destination that might be unhappy in the human realm, but it won't be so effective as to cause them rebirth in a hell realm, in a animal realm, or in a hungry ghost realm. Of course, there are the 5 acts that one should not commit, because that cuts off one from completely going into the stream. And that is the action of killing your mother, killing your father, killing an arahant, wounding a Buddha with malintent, or creating a schism in the Sangha, creating disharmony in the Sangha. So any of these acts basically will result in an immediate rebirth in the hell realm. It will immediately result in that. And then only after that process of karmic exhaustion, will there be an opportunity then for someone to enter the stream, but not in that very same life because of those actions. So that's the thing about karma. It is so complex that you cannot just say, because I'm committing all of these right deeds, I'm entitled to go into a heavenly realm. Or if you haven't entered the stream and you say that, I have committed these deeds that are right and noble, and I still have right view, I am entitled to go into a happier place, into a happier rebirth. Unless you have entered the stream, you are liable to fall. You are liable to fall into a lower realm. So it's the same way for somebody who has committed bad deeds. Just because they have committed bad deeds doesn't mean that in their next life, necessarily, they will take rebirth in a unhappy destination, or they will take rebirth in a lower realm, or even in hell. It all depends upon the crisscrossing, the intertwining of different karma and how those seeds ripen at certain periods of time during this whole process. So the Buddha says, thus, Ananda, there is action that is incapable and appears incapable. There is action that is incapable and appears capable. There is action that is capable and appears capable. And there is action that is capable and appears incapable. So there are these different variations. It's a very interesting understanding. So there is action that is incapable and appears incapable. That is to say, there's action that could be unwholesome and appears that it won't lead to a good rebirth. So that's the unwholesome action, incapable of leading to a good rebirth. There is action that is incapable of leading to a good rebirth, but appears to lead to a good rebirth. Then there is an action that is capable of leading to a good rebirth, and definitely does lead to, or appears to lead to, a good rebirth. There is action that it looks like it is capable of leading to a good rebirth, or it can provide you a good rebirth because of the wholesomeness of that action, but it appears incapable of leading you to a good rebirth. So these are the different variations of how action and the fruition of action occurs. Now, I do want to bring up something in regards to understanding negative karma or unwholesome karma in this life here and now. Oftentimes, people will look at that and say, well, I've committed all of these terrible deeds, and therefore I am liable to experience them, and they hold on to it, and they have all of this guilt around whatever those misdeeds might be. But that only further creates further existence in this very life, further bhava, that creates further action that might not be rooted in wholesome states of mind. Because of that guilt, because of that remorse, because of that continually being in that process of guilt, one is unable or incapable of being able to create good karma for themselves. So in those processes, I would recommend using forgiveness practice. If there are people who have committed something that has been considered to be very unwholesome, and it might be unwholesome, but if you hold yourself victim to that and you attach a sense of self to that and say, I am not worthy of anything other than experiencing the bad effects of my karma, then you are holding on to one of those wrong views, because there is still a allotment of good karma that you've committed before those bad deeds, let's say. So you need to be able to take a look at that. You need to be able to see and acknowledge that and understand that. And at the same time, forgive yourself, go through a forgiveness practice, have self-compassion, let go of the attachment to that negative karma. And when it ripens, it will ripen. That is not in your control. What you have in your control right now, so to speak, is your choice of whether to continue to be wholesome or your choice to continue to be unwholesome, and the choice to be mindful and let go of the attachments to any kind of outcome of any kind of karma. Stop identifying with unwholesome karma, but ultimately also stop identifying with wholesome karma. And commit yourself to attaining stream entry if you haven't already, because at that point in time, then you have the mundane, the super mundane right view, the understanding at some point in time because of the Nibbanic experience that this is the right view, that is to say the Four Noble Truths. You might not have it completely, but you have now understood that the Four Noble Truths work. So you have let go of the fetters of doubt, you have let go of the fetters of self-view, let go of the fetters of attachments to rites and rituals with the thinking that this will lead to Nibbana. So at the same time, when you have committed good deeds, don't just rely on those good deeds to take you to wholesome states of mind further in the future. Understand that this committing of good deeds, attaining sila, keeping the virtues, keeping the precepts, is only the first step. At that point, then you get into samadhi practice. You use that as the foundation because it will help you to create a mindset that is clear, that is collected, that is tranquil for you to be able to go into jhana and experience deeper and deeper states of mind so that you are able to then experience nibbana at some point in time. So this is really the understanding one should have when it comes to Kamma, that it is not cut, it's not clear cut like that. It's just a lot of different variations and a lot of different other factors that we'll see in the next sutta that I'll read right after this. So this is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Ananda was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So I'm going to read from the other sutta. It's very short, but it'll give you some more clarity on the understanding of Kamma. Because you can't just rely on Kamma itself. There's other factors in play, other causes and conditions in play in relation to one's own intentions and in relation to others' intentions. Yes, the underlying current is some kind of karmic process in terms of cause and effect, but you can't just say that that's all it is. It is all part of a series of causes and conditions that take into account your own karma, but also take into account other factors outside of that process. So this is a sutta that is from the Samyutta Nikaya, and let me see where it's from. It is from, let's see. So it's called Sivaka Sutta, or Molya Sivaka Sutta. And it says here, it is in the New Translation of Samyutta Nikaya. It's in chapter 30, or section 36, chapter 2 of part 4. And it is in the section called Vedana Samyutta. And in here it says it's in the theme of the 108. So it's it says here it's called 21, 1 in parentheses, Sivaka. And it says here, I'm going to read now, on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Then the wanderer Molya Sivaka approached the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, he sat down to one side and said to the Blessed One, Master Gautama, there are some ascetics and Brahmins who hold such a doctrine and view as this. Whatever a person experiences, whether it be pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, all that is caused by what was done in the past. What does Master Gautama say about this? Some feelings, Savaka, arise here originating from bile disorders. That some feelings arise here originating from bile disorders, one can know for oneself, and that is considered to be true in the world. Now, when those ascetics and Brahmins hold such a doctrine and view as whatever a person experiences, whether it be pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, all that is caused by what was done in the past, they overshoot what one knows by oneself, and they overshoot what is considered to be true in the world. Therefore, I say that this is wrong on the part of those ascetics and Brahmins. Some feelings, Savaka, arise here originating from phlegm disorders, originating from wind disorders. So when he talks about bile, phlegm, and wind, that's the ancient Indian understanding of disorders or imbalances in the body, which can cause different kinds of diseases and things like that. So, or originating from an imbalance of the three, as I just mentioned, produced by change of climate change, the weather, temperature, snowfall, rainfall, wind, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever it might be. Produced by careless behavior, being unmindful and being heedless in your actions, and caused by assault, which is to say somebody else attacks you without rhyme or reason, seemingly without rhyme or reason, produced as the result of Kamma. That some feelings arise here produced as the result of Kamma, one can know for oneself, and that is considered to be true in the world. Now, when those ascetics and Brahmins hold such a doctrine and view as this, whatever a person experiences, whether it be pleasant or painful or neither painful nor pleasant, all that is caused by what was done in the past. They overshoot what one knows by oneself, and they overshoot what is considered to be true in the world. Therefore, I say that this is wrong on the part of those Brahmins. So essentially what the Buddha is saying is that the idea of holding on to the view that everything that one does is happening because of previous choices and conditions, or previous choices and intentions, then cause the effects of that in a future time period. That is valid and that is accurate, but one has to also take into account that that's not the only underlying current here. There is also other factors at play. Ultimately, they all result from some kind of karmic fruition, because somebody was there at a certain time period, in a certain place, with a certain climate, and with certain kinds of disorders in the body. It arose because of previous choices and intentions. But you cannot just fully say that just because one committed this is what is the result of that. You have to take into other factors. So when it comes to disease, when it comes to illnesses, when it comes to whatever it might be, it's not to say it's a punishment for something that someone did in a previous life. It's just because of certain causes and conditions. Maybe one was careless, one didn't wash their hands, one came into contact with something and therefore is experiencing disorders in the body and then experiencing some kind of disease or illness. Or while one is just walking down the street, suddenly somebody comes up and, assaults you. That was not because of something you did directly, but it was caused by somebody else's actions, somebody else's intentions. Your choice to walk there was definitely your choice and intention. So insofar as that being karmic in nature, yes, we can grant that. But in as far as saying that you caused the assault directly, that won't be valid either, because you have to understand the complexities that are involved here. There is something to be said about committing good action, which results in good experiences or good existences, and vice versa, in the sense of good actions can lead to bad circumstances, not because they are directly connected, but because something else overtakes that. That is the ripening of previous karma. So in the same way here, he's saying they overshoot what one knows by oneself. They overshoot, meaning they're not coming here in the present moment and understanding in the here and now what are the immediate factors that are being in play, whether it's related to disease, related to assault, related to climate change, related to carelessness, whatever it might be, they overshoot that. They don't see that. And they overshoot what is considered to be true in the world, meaning what is accurate right now. Instead, they try to say this was because of a past life that I did something. No, it can also be because of something you did a few moments ago, something you did a week ago. Whatever actions you committed, somehow that created some causes and conditions that led you to a certain place, and that led you to certain exposure to disease or exposure to assault or exposure to climate. And still, that was because of certain choices you made. But those weren't directly related to that climate, directly related to that disease, directly related to that assault. It's just that everything came into play through those series of causes and conditions, and there was some kind of rightening or effect of those series of causes and conditions. When this was said, the wanderer Molya said to the Blessed One, "Magnificent Master Gautama, magnificent Master Gautama. From today, let Master Gautama remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life." And then it ends with a small verse. It says, "Bile, phlegm, and also wind, imbalance and climate too, carelessness and assault, with Kamma result as the 8. So these are the different causes and conditions, the 8 different causes and conditions, and the effects of that as well. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I have a little comment. If you are interested in this, you might want to read the Anguttara Nikaya Suttas from the Book of Threes, number 100. It's called A Lump of Salt, and it goes even deeper into the effects of some people doing a very tiny misdeed and ending up in hell versus people doing something massively wrong without seemingly much ill effect. It's a very interesting sutta. I was under the impression that you would be reading that as the second one, but it's even deeper.
Well, I could.
Yeah.
I could. What is the sutta?
It's Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of Threes, number 100. I have it here in front of me too, but it's a couple of pages. But it's very interesting.
Is it a long one, or it's just?
It has. Let me see. It has 3.5 pages.
Well, I can go through it and we can discuss it. Let me see if I can. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, this is a lump of salt.
Yes.
Bhikkhus, if one were to say thus, a person experiences Kamma in precisely the same way that he created it. In such a case, there could be no living of the spiritual life, and no opportunity would be seen for completely making an end of suffering. But if one were to say thus, when a person creates Kamma that is to be experienced in a certain way, in a particular way, he experiences its result precisely in that way. In such a case, the living of the spiritual life is possible, and an opportunity is seen for completely making an end of suffering. Here, bhikkhus, some person has created trifling bad karma, yet it leads him to hell, while some other person here has created exactly the same trifling karma, yet it is to be experienced in this very life without even a slight residue being seen, much less abundant residue. What kind of person creates trifling bad karma that leads him to hell? Here, some person is undeveloped in body, virtuous behavior, mind, and wisdom. He is limited and has a mean character, and he dwells in suffering. When such a person creates trifling bad karma, it leads him to hell. What kind of person creates exactly the same trifling bad karma, and yet it is to be experienced in this very life without even a slight residue being seen, much less abundant residue? Here, some person is developed in body, virtuous behavior, mind, and wisdom. He is unlimited and has a lofty character, and he dwells without measure. When such a person creates exactly the same trifling bad karma, it is to be experienced in this very life, without even a slight residue being seen, much less abundant residue. Suppose a man would drop a lump of salt into a small bowl of water. What do you think, bhikkhus? Would that lump of salt make the small quantity of water in the bowl salty and undrinkable? Yes, Bhante. For what reason? Because the water in the bowl is limited, thus that lump of salt would make it salty and undrinkable. But suppose a man would drop a lump of salt into the river Ganges. What do you think, bhikkhus? Would that lump of salt make the river Ganges become salty and undrinkable? No, Bhante. For what reason? Because the river Ganges contains a large volume of water. Thus, that lump of salt would not make it salty and undrinkable. So too, bhikkhus, some person here has created trifling bad karma, yet it leads him to hell, while some other person here has created exactly the same trifling karma, yet it is to be experienced in this very life, without even a slight residue being seen, much less abundant residue. What kind of person creates trifling bad karma that leads him to hell? Here, some person is undeveloped in body, virtuous behavior, mind, and wisdom. When such a person creates a trifling bad karma, it leads him to hell. What kind of person creates exactly the same trifling bad karma, and yet it is to be experienced in this very life without even a slight residue being seen, much less an abundant residue? Here, some person is developed in body, virtuous behavior, mind, and wisdom. When such a person has created exactly the same trifling bad karma, it is to be experienced in this very life, without even a slight residue being seen, much less abundant residue. Here, bhikkhus, someone is imprisoned for stealing half a kahapana, or 100 kahapanas, while someone else is not imprisoned for stealing the same amount. What kind of person is imprisoned for stealing half a kahapana, or 100 kahapanas? Here, someone is poor with little property and wealth. Such a person is imprisoned for stealing half a kahapana, or 100 kahapanas. What kind of person is not imprisoned for stealing half a kahapana, or 100 kahapanas? Here, someone is rich with much money and wealth. Such a person is not imprisoned for stealing half a kahapana, or 100 kahapanas. So too, bhikkhus, some person has created trifling bad karma, yet it leads him to hell, while some other person here has created exactly the same trifling karma, yet it is to be experienced in this very life, without even a slight residue being seen, much less abundant residue. What kind of person creates trifling bad karma that leads him to hell? Here, some person is undeveloped in body and wisdom. When such a person has created trifling bad karma, it leads him to hell. What kind of person creates exactly the same bad trifling karma and yet is to be experienced in this very life without even a slight residue being seen, much less an abundant residue. Here some person is developed in body, virtuous behavior, mind, and wisdom. When such a person has created exactly the same trifling bad karma, it is to be experienced in this very life without even a slight residue being seen, much less abundant residue. Looks like it goes on for some time. Should I continue?
I think we get the gist of it.
But basically, the understanding is if you are committing wholesome actions and you commit to keeping the precepts, you commit to having a mind that is meditative. Remember, they said immeasurable, a mind without measure, which is to say someone who is immeasurable in their meditation, someone who practices love and kindness, someone who practices the other Brahmaviharas. They are not liable to experience the effects of that karma in a next life or in a hell realm necessarily, because of the quantity of good deeds that they've committed and the quantity of wisdom that they have in terms of their understanding and right view. Whereas somebody who has not walked the path, somebody who commits the same kind of karma, their mind is still disturbed by their misdeeds. Their mind is not cultivated or developed by virtue, developed by keeping the precepts, developed by samadhi and wisdom. And therefore, they could be liable. That's not that they will be liable, but they could be liable for experiencing a hell realm just because of that difference in maintaining precepts, maintaining virtue, and keeping some kind of meditative practice.
Thank you, Delson, for your talk. I have a question. It's a bit tangential, but the first sutta you read about the recluses who the recluse who obstinately holds to what he himself has known, seen, and discovered, in terms of they saw for themselves, for lack of better terms, like good people who go to heaven, good people who go to hell, and bad people who go to hell, and bad people go to heaven, right? These four different. So they saw for themselves, this was like their experience, but then they were wrong. And I guess my question is, my understanding is that in Buddhism, we come to see for ourselves, to experience for ourselves what this is. It's not blind faith. So how do we make sure that our experience isn't leading us to the wrong view the way these recluses, right? Because they're saying, I have seen for myself, I know for myself, but they were still wrong. And I feel that, so far, the little that I've learned, I feel that I have seen it for myself and I know this for myself, right? But I don't want to end up like one of the recluses and saying, well, yeah, it's my experience, but it still took me down to the wrong conclusion or to the wrong view anyway. So if that makes sense, that's, so I guess, how do we check our experience, if you will?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in the context of that sutta, what we saw was you had these four recluses. And what they were doing was only seeing part of that experience, but they weren't taking into account that there is these four possibilities. So whatever they saw in terms of their experience, they considered to be the truth. And like the Buddha says, we can grant them that in the sense that, okay, this is the understanding. But then saying that and applying it absolutely to all circumstances based or inferring that based on that experience would not be correct, would not be accurate. Because in the process of understanding right view, we know that there is an experience of good karma, which produces good results. There's bad karma, which produces bad results. But we also understand that there is a complexity to this karma. So from that context, we know that we can't just say that this is the case and nothing else can be accurate, nothing else can be right. So in that stubbornness, in holding on to that view, they don't have the full view or the full understanding of karma and how it works in relation to, like we said, you have good people or good beings who can go to hell because, the ripening of their bad karma comes before the ripening of their good karma. Or the other way is possible too. So when it comes to one's own experience in terms of jhana practice, in terms of, the attainment, let's say, or whatever else it might be, there you have to be more long-term in your view or in your understanding. And what I mean by that is how the mind responds and reacts. That's your best teacher in terms of your experience. So if you think, or somebody has said to you that you have this attainment, go back to the suttas, check it out, refer to that, understand it, and then see how that experience of that attainment relates to your life. So for example, in the next, after you have an attainment, let's say somebody says that this person is a anagami. If they're an anagami, then that means they have destroyed the first 5 fetters, which means they won't have any craving and they won't have any kind of aversion to anything. They won't have any kind of ill will. Now that person continues on throughout their process of meditating and living out their life, and they experience just an inkling of craving. That experience informs them and tells them, no, I haven't. So they have to be honest with themselves. They have to be understanding through the process of referring to the suttas and checking back with their experience to see if it matches up. If they notice, even after a year, an inkling of craving comes up, they're not an anagami. So in terms of attainments, I will say insofar as that, is one doesn't really need to worry about attainments. As long as one has right view and sees bit by bit that craving is going away, and ultimately that experience will come about, and you will see for yourself that you just don't equate things in terms of craving. You don't equate things or see the world in terms of aversion or ill will. So I will always say your experience is your best teacher. Your experience and the mind and how it experiences the world is your best guide and your best teacher, because we don't have a Buddha around us. So we can't really rely on someone like the Buddha telling you for sure that this is the case. So your own experience is the best guide, second to the Buddha's explanation. And so the other point is to always check back with the suttas. That's the other part of that. So your experience is there, but does it gel with the suttas? Does it really, confirm and conform with what the suttas are talking about in relation to what you are seeing or what you are experiencing?
Okay, so it sounds like so 2 things. One, it sounds like trust my experience, right? Like what I've seen for myself, what I know for myself, but also understand that if this is all of the truth, if you will, my experience is only like this little bit down here. And so, yes, what I've seen is true. Yes, what I know this is true for myself because I've seen it for myself. I've known it for myself. But recognizing that I've only learned a small part, or I've only seen a small part of the truth. I haven't seen all of it yet. And so that, I guess, will lead you to be open to keep learning and experiencing more and hearing more. Whereas what these recluses did was, I saw this for myself, I learned this for myself, and only this is right and everything else is wrong. So if me and my limited experience, or any one of us, I guess, we experience and we learn some small bit of the truth, a small bit of the dhamma, and we say, this is true, and I'm done. Then that would be, okay, so we can trust our experience. Like I said, check with the dhamma, and maybe check with folks, other kalyana mittas, right, to check with you, but you still trust your experience. And the other thing I wanted to say about the dhamma just reminded me of the stories, how bad karma there's always fruition. So the Buddha had a bad back because he had hurt other people in the past, and Moggallana had a horrible death, violent death, because of his bad karma in the past. And Moggallana was an arahant, and the Buddha was a Buddha, but even they were still, from who knows way back when, still having to had some debts to pay before it was all really done. That's right.
Even the case of, and I'll just add a couple of things based on your first part, is that is an extension of, if you go back to Greater Nikaya number 1, that is the Brahmajala Sutta, it's the 62 different types of view. And there too, you will see that there are recluses that see so and so, and then they think that this is how the world is, or this is how existence is. Like someone might have an experience of Brahma and say there is this Brahma, there is this all-powerful, all-seeing deity, but that's just a limited perspective, because beyond that, there are other worlds beyond the Brahma realms and stuff. So different views, the 62 different views related to that. So again, going back to that, just to confirm and reiterate what you just said, you cannot just say that that is the view and say that that's it, I know everything now. You have to be able to confirm with the suttas and obviously keep in check with your own experience. And depending upon that, see if there is still work to be done, if there's still more work to be done. The second part to that, you were talking about Moggallana and you were talking about the Buddha. Even in the case of Angulimala, who was this killer on the loose, right? He was a serial killer. He killed all of these people and collected their fingers and created a necklace out of that and wore it. That is how the story goes. But the Buddha saw that Angulimala was about to actually go and kill his mother, as one of the story goes. So he went there to stop him from doing that, because that would have prevented him to go into stream entry and then ultimately arahantship. But then there was a exchange of words, and the Buddha said, and Angulimala said, you know, why do you keep running away from me, or why do you keep walking away? And the Buddha was using his, you know, they say his powers to be able to get away from Angulimala, no matter how fast Angulimala was running. And the Buddha said, I've stopped. Even while I'm running, I've stopped. Meaning the mind has stopped all craving. What about you? The mind has stopped all hatred. What about you? And that starts the process of Angulimala turning into a stream enter and ultimately becoming an arahant. But he still experienced the fruits of his past deeds in that very life. People beat him with sticks and stones when he went on alms rounds because they knew he used to be Angulimala. And the Buddha said, just bear with it. Otherwise, if you hadn't entered the stream and experienced arahantship, you would be in hell. You would actually experience the hell realms. So that's the, and yes, that's a really good point about Moggallana as well. He was somebody who committed a past misdeed, and for that he was paying in this very life as an arahant. And likewise with the Buddha. Now Devdutt is the Buddha's cousin who created a schism, and he tried to harm the Buddha. And right now he's in the Niraya realm because of what he did. But later on, after some eons, he will become a Pacceka Buddha. That's what the explanation goes. Ajatashattu was another king who killed his own father. And because of that, the Buddha said that he will not be able to have stream entry, but he will have to suffer the consequences. And in the next life, he will again get stream entry, and he'll actually become another solitary Buddha like Devdutt. So that's the complexity of karma. You can't just keep it, you know, this is the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Delson, I have something.
Yes.
Can I ask you, please? Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Out of the 4 people you mentioned in the sutta, first sutta, the second person who is an evildoer goes to the heaven. It's committing, killing living beings and holds wrong view on the dissolution. After the death, he reappears in a happy destination. How it is possible? That is first one. Second one, in the Samyutta SN Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya Sutta, you used the word negative kamma. Did Buddha posit the idea of negative kamma as a specific doctrine? If we accept this negative kamma as an individual, am I not responsible for others? Because in this pandemic times also, people who are well known with that, innocent people also dying because of that particular disease. So this collective karma did or negative karma, did he speak about it in the suttas? Buddha.
Yeah.
This is what
Okay.
my two questions are.
So in your first question, you talked about somebody who committed evil deeds and had wrong view, and then goes to a heavenly realm. As the Buddha says, it can be due because he committed some previous positive actions. So when I use the word positive, negative, I'm saying wholesome or unwholesome, or good deeds or bad deeds. So he committed something that was wholesome, and at the dissolution of the body, he had a right view, and that caused him to go into a heavenly realm. It was dependent upon the ripening of the good or the bad karma. Here, the good karma ripened before the bad karma. So that doesn't mean that once he goes to heaven, that's where he'll stay. That effect of the bad karma will still come into play at a future period of time, where he would be liable to go into a lower realm or unhappy destination, or even hell, depending upon what karma he committed in terms of the bad karma. Does that make sense so far?
Yes. Okay. Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So
the second part, the second part, you're talking about the pandemic. When I say negative karma,
negative karma.
Negative karma, yeah. When I say negative karma, I'm referring to wholesome, unwholesome karma. But you were talking about, let's say, people who are, dying because of the disease or whatever it might be. Are you saying, is that because of collective karma? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, negative karma. People who participated in the event, that particular pandemic, and without their knowledge, they died. That is the negative karma. Buddha did not speak about it in the suttas.
There's no reference in the suttas, and it's not within the realm of the Buddha's dispensation to talk about collective karma. And collective karma is more of a new age kind of thing. The idea that there is a collective karma that a society has to go through, or collective karma that a group of people have to go through, and things like that. That I have never seen come across in the suttas, as far as I've read it, or the Buddha discussing it in that way. But in terms of disease and things like that, it is on an individual level, and it's dependent upon, like I read in the Sivaka Sutta, which is that it's the imbalances of the body, and that could be because of individual choices and preference. So you can't obviously completely say that that's absolutely the case, but you can say that because of certain choices somebody made, it led them to experiencing something in the way of the illness. Maybe they were not careful, and that's their individual choices. It has nothing to do with the collective. It has nothing to do because of a collection of people, and they're coming together and suffering and experiencing the effects of some kind of collective negative karma.
May I say like this? Because of ignorance, I'm committing some mistakes on my own. I will be taking so many births. On the same lines, the collective karma is also coming in the way for taking so many births or anything. Births and deaths. That is the version.
See, I wouldn't say it's collective karma in that sense. I would say that the ripening of certain karma, which is whether it's rooted in the formations prior to dying, match up with the parameters of those choices, match up with the parameters of ripening in that karma. So which means that being born in a certain time period, being born in a certain type of society or a status, whether you're wealthy or poor, being born into a type of religion, whether you are born a Buddhist, whether you're born a Hindu, whether you're born a Christian, whatever it might be, being born in a certain city or in the countryside, being born in a certain country, or whatever it might be. Those all come together, but that's not necessarily collective karma. It's more about it's matching with the ripening of the karma that is ready to be experienced in the way of that next rebirth. So to say that you were born at a certain period and that then caused you to experience whatever it might be that you experienced, you can say insofar as your individual choices. But there are, yes, but that's not collective karma. That's more related to what's happening around the world. Somehow it just matches with whatever choices you've made in that moment or in the prior moments or in the prior years or whatever it might be. But to say that it's a grouping or it's a coming together of all these different karmic factors to cause a collective so that you have like-minded people and things like that, I wouldn't stretch it that far, because then that would bring into account the idea. Then that means that certain people suffered because of their karma. Like, for example, there were certain genocides and things like that. So those people all together came together as a collective to suffer their karma. I wouldn't go as far as to say that either, because it all depends upon individual choices.
Thank you.
Welcome. Does that clear your answer? Does that clarify?
Yes, it is. This collective karma, national karma, started by a Russian lady called Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky.
Theosophy.
And because of that, they have become very popular nowadays. People are speaking and they are attributing to Buddha.
Yeah, that's wrong, actually.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, Delson. Thank you for the lecture, and thank you everyone for participating today. I had a couple questions, and they are a little complex, given that it is a complex subject. The first one would be a bit of a string off the last question, and obviously none of us chose really to be here, as far as I'm concerned, right? It's kind of our karma that we took this birth in this life, in this body, and that karma led to a bunch of conditions, right? And causes and conditions. Being born where you are in a set of family or religion gives you certain situations that otherwise you wouldn't, and it's all just kind of happening in of itself, right? So my question is that I feel we could guide our consciousness towards positive or negative action, so to say, but how much of it is really our choice? Do we really have so much free will in the matter of life, or is everything just really happening in of itself due to past causes and conditions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's really trying to understand free will and determinism, or fatalism even, going to that extent. That is everything predetermined, and therefore we don't have a choice. That would not be the case. What's happening here is you look at it in the division of old karma and new karma. When we talk about karma, it means a couple of things. First, it means like active actions, taking actions with intention. And secondly, it means the effects of previous actions. So there is a sutta in which the Buddha talks about old karma and new karma. And he talks about where he says that everything from formations all the way up to feeling, contact and feeling, is old karma. Everything that you experience in that way is old karma. The new karma is everything you do after that. So the way you're born, or maybe even not even having to say when, the way you're born, but even now in this present time, you are this way, the body is this way, your senses are this way, your mindset is this way, because of previous choices you made in this life or maybe even in a past life. So all of that is old karma. You can't do anything about that except to experience it. But there is new karma in the way of the active sense of the word, taking some kind of action or reacting to how it arises. So if there is some kind of karma in the way of a painful feeling, that is painful feeling. That is the old karma. Now, are you going to have aversion towards it? then does cause clinging and being and rebirth, which is all the new Kamma? Or are you going to understand it as old Kamma and use wisdom rooted in the Eightfold Path and understand it as a process of choice where you choose not to react to it, but you choose to respond with it by saying this is old Kamma and letting it being experienced without attaching any kind of identification to it. So if you look at it from the context of dependent origination, what we are saying here is formations, consciousness, mentality, materiality, the six sense bases, contact, feeling, and the perception intertwined with that feeling. All of that is old Kamma. Now, if you choose to have craving or aversion, then the craving, the clinging, the bhava or being, and the rebirth will be the new Kamma that you produce actively through that choice. And then the dukkha that arises, the jara, marana, and the dukkha, then is actually all Kamma in the way of a painful feeling or a painful experience that happens in a next set of choices that you have. So the choice is between the level of feeling or the link of feeling and between craving. So in there, if you decide to identify and decide to have craving, then there you're liable to produce new Kamma and therefore liable to experience effects of that new Kamma. But if you understand that Kamma to be impersonal, understand it to be impersonal and impermanent, then you don't hold on to it. And whatever is experienced without creating more or adding more to that Kamma.
Thank you. That's great. My second question would be, so it seems that the precepts give us, a pretty clear guideline as to what could lead to good Kamma and what could lead to bad Kamma. Yet, it seems that a lot of things are just completely up to the way we perceive them. So what is really good or what is really bad? This comes again to the way we are raised or different causes and conditions of our surroundings. And, just one example that seems very clear is that, a lot of people in the world think it's wrong to eat meat and fish and whatnot, where a lot of people think it's fine and that we should even be doing that. So yeah, where is the real good or bad or I mean it seems that even when you go to the end of the path and you experience the unconditioned, it seems that there is no good and bad. That's the way I really perceive it, at least from this standpoint at this moment.
Yeah. So the way to understand it is you have the 5 basic precepts. So that means in that sense that you don't intentionally kill. So that obviously would be a bad thing. I think in terms of outside even in the Buddhist context, depending upon, in any religion or even in terms of just humanity itself, killing would be a bad thing. Killing would be something that causes pain for yourself as well as towards another being. So that is sort of pretty much, a universal in the sense that you don't want to kill any being. You don't want to harm any being. Secondly, you have taking what is not given, right? That is stealing. That also goes beyond any context of spirituality or religion. It's more about a societal thing. It's more about what makes you feel good about understanding reality in terms of if you steal something and it makes you feel good, that's one thing. But as a whole, it's something that people don't like in general. Your stuff being stolen, you wouldn't like that, just as a general thing, you wouldn't like your stuff being stolen. Likewise with lying, likewise with sexual misconduct or sensual misconduct, and likewise with taking intoxicants. We can all agree, whether we're Buddhist or Hindu or Christian or whatever, or even just nothing, that if you have a drink or if you are in some kind of intoxicants, it is liable to cause some kind of misperception of reality. You're not fully in your senses. Because of that, it can cause heedlessness, and that heedlessness can cause you to commit other breaking of the precepts. So the way I would understand it, or one would understand it, is that these 5 basic precepts are universal to all of humanity. It doesn't matter whether you're Buddhist or not, or whatever you might be, but everybody can agree upon the fact that nobody wants to be killed. Nobody wants to have their stuff stolen. Nobody likes being lied to. Nobody likes being sexually cheated or having misconduct done through because of sexual acts. And nobody likes being in a state of uncontrol or no control because of intoxicants, or nobody likes to be affected by somebody who might be drunk or intoxicated. So that's the perspective one could kind of see in terms of that there is this kind of ground or foundational wholesomeness, foundational goodness found through that process of the 5 precepts.
Yes, but on a broader level, you know, someone could steal something from a store, but think it's not wrong because they need it and they're poor, you know. And then someone could steal something from a store and, well, they, you know, and the person who's poor, like, really perceives it as not being a problem. Especially maybe they're stealing from a big corporation, let's say, and they're saying, well, they have so much, you know, and I have so little. And I feel that a lot of actions come down, and the fruition of the Kamma is almost self-imposed in many ways. So it's like you could do something wrong and you really feel it's bad, and so you'll suffer for doing that wrong action. Whereas if someone does something wrong, will they really suffer? You know, and if it's not let's say listed under the 5 precepts, it's maybe more vague. Is the Kamma self-imposed because it's the way we perceive it?
Yeah, when you talk about something like that, where somebody steals, let's say, food or whatever it might be, I would just say stealing is stealing. In my understanding, stealing is stealing. Whether you steal it from a local store or whether you steal it from a corporation or whatever it might be, it still affects a group of people or someone somewhere. It still has some kind of unwholesome effect on another person. In terms of self-imposed suffering, yes, guilt, remorse, regret, these are all self-imposed in the sense that they are an effect of seeing something that one might have done and has guilt for. So they are creating mental suffering. They're creating the bhava, the new being or new existence, the mental existence where they have that suffering. But at the same time, there is still a outside of the sense of self, outside of this idea of identity, where suffering arises as a result of that negative or that unwholesome karma. Because it's not the self, remember, it's not the self that experiences it. It's because of certain choices. And those formations that arise from those choices give rise to a certain type of consciousness that can be defiled or undefiled. And usually it will be defiled if it's done through unwholesome actions. That then gives rise to a mindset or a nama rupa that then is liable to experience a painful experience at a certain point in time. Whether that's self-imposed, that could be one case in the sense that one experiences regret and guilt and other things, or whether it's an effect from other people's intentions, choices, and other causes and conditions involved.
Thank you.
Maybe to add to what Jonathan said, if you steal from a big corporation, it's not like a big mountain of money that isn't really from a person. When you steal something from a corporation, maybe the lower workers will get punished for that because they didn't pay close attention to keeping an eye on the money or the products or whatever. So you never will be able to know the consequences of that deed.
Yeah, very good point.
Hi, Delson.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for the talk and for staying up late to answer our questions. So I have two questions, but I want to put them into context first of kind of my own experience and my own perceptions. So this, sorry for the background noise. This idea of rebirth is something that is pretty foreign to me, and it seems it's part of the terms of just motivation. Because if there's kind of the way I think of it is if there's no rebirth, then as much suffering as you have in this lifetime, like once you die, it's over. So, I didn't grow up with this sort of an understanding of rebirth. And so my questions are, one, sort of how important is it to sort of accept and believe in rebirth to progress on this path? And then two, is there a point on the path at which you sort of, see it and experience it directly? That rebirth actually does happen. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So we have to understand with regards to rebirth, we're not only just talking about, let's say, rebirth from one lifetime to the next, but we can also be talking about it from one moment to the next. We have the arising and passing away of consciousness in every moment. So that is a rebirth of one iota of consciousness and a passing away of a different iota of consciousness. So of the same iota of consciousness, and then there is a new consciousness that arises and passes away, and this happens in every moment. So there is that understanding of rebirth. Taking that into context, what you're looking at is every time you make a choice, so you're making the choice at the level of contact and feeling. You have an experience and the mind inclines towards that and has craving. That craving gives rise to a new sense of identity based on the experience of that craving, which then gives rise to bhava, bhava being an existence or habitual tendencies. It's the storehouse of certain tendencies from which the mind acts automatically. So here, that process of birth is also known as birth of action or rebirth of action, which is to say you act, whether it's in your mind, you have a thought, you have verbal action, so you say something, or you have some kind of physical action. Whatever you do from there, that causes the rebirth of that action. So on that level, there is rebirth, because then that action produces some kind of result that you could experience in a next cycle of dependent origination, that you can experience at some point in time. When it comes to rebirth from one lifetime to the next, it's not like you need to believe in that when you start out. But when you start to see it for yourself, this arising and passing away of consciousness, you start to get deeper insights at a certain point in time where you realize, okay, so if there's one arising of consciousness and a passing away of consciousness, what happens at death? Using the same context, this micro level context of the arising and passing away of consciousness, the arising of consciousness happened because of formations. Those formations being rooted in some kind of intention, which means just using that as an inference, you're able to see that at death, there is a possibility that there's some kind of intention It could be some kind of experience that you're having just prior to death, and the intention grabs onto it and gives rise to a new consciousness, which will then dissipate when it takes birth, let's say, or establishes itself into a new mentality and materiality. This is the understanding based on that micro level of dependent origination. But there is another point here. When you go through the process of the threefold knowledge and you see for yourself, you go back into your own past lives and you understand, based on choices you made in the past, how those choices arose and how those formations arose because of previous choices. And you start to link back based on your memory. And then that sort of gets beyond this one lifetime, and you start to see things in other lifetimes and in previous lifetimes. So that gives you some kind of an experience that there is a possibility of rebirth, and there's a possibility of past lifetimes. And if that's the case, then there's a possibility of future lifetimes based on the conditions for that rebirth, the fuel for that rebirth, which is primarily craving, identification, and ignorance. And that ignorance is basically the ignorance of not seeing the Four Noble Truths and not seeing the three characteristics in everything that you're experiencing in the way of Vedana, in the way of feeling. So the short answer of that is no, you don't need to believe in rebirth in the beginning, but you want to have an open enough mind to be able to say it is possible. And as you start to deepen your practice and start to see the arising and passing away of consciousness, you start to make the connections and see it is possible because of formations, because of previous choices, that this can happen in another lifetime. If you take that micro level and you expand it up into from lifetime to lifetime, it still starts to make sense. But it will only make sense when you actually experience it and when you see it for yourself. So you're not expected to believe in rebirth. You're not expected to see it for to take it on faith. You're only here to have the open mind to be able to say, let me try and see for myself if this is a possibility. And then your experience gives you that confirmation if it is possible.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Maybe one last question, very short question. Because it's 11:30 for Delson in Asia. If not, shall we all share merit, please? All right, everyone can join me if you like. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving
Shadow, grief, and may all beings find relief.
all beings share this
We
merit
share this merit.
for the acquisitions of all kinds of happiness. May we, inhabiting space and earth, Devas and Nagas almighty power, share this merit of ours. May they protect us without dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thanks so much,
Delson.
Delson.
Thank you very much, Delson.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
very much,
Thank you
everybody.
very much, Delson. Thank you,
Thank you
Kin.
very much, everybody.
Yes, thank you, Delson. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Gusto
you.
conocerte, Pablo.
Great questions today.
Yeah, thank you, Kin.